What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. Just 6 cards were changed on our Forbidden and Limited list, yet the market-wide reaction to any ban list is very diverse. A lot of people were dumping cards in anticipation that, hey, the list is coming up, this just won an event, this has been doing well, maybe this is too new to get hit, and whenever you speculate around ban lists, that's just it, it's speculation. Even the most trained eyes could think there's a definite hit coming to something, despite the balances in the format, and a minimalistic approach is what Konami took this time, so Engage was all the way down below $40, and in just a couple hours, we see it above freaking 60. Now, this once had the heavyweight title of like $100 being the most expensive card in our format, and we see Widow Anchor rising sharply to $40. I don't know how long this rise will stay. I don't know how many people just bought copies of cards that are gonna have their orders canceled or just be kind of screwed out by sellers. Do keep in mind, though, on the seller side of things, if they are using Crystal Commerce to list on multiple sites and someone bought from their website and TCG Player, it might still show on stock on one of the two. So do give sellers a little slack on that front, but you can kind of tell when it's intentional, I feel like. So we do see Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, rising. This is a card I'd been relatively harsh on. I thought Sky Strikers had had its time, but we do see the no sooner than already in January. So the Nationals actually format might be shaping February to March. We used to get our ban list around then, and that's what would really shape the prices of the market. So it's really interesting to see that we don't have too many events for maybe this current FNL list during the off season. We'll have to keep an eye on how prices stay and how many big changes might be coming. So yeah, we see on all fronts Sky Striker Mobilize Engage going crazy. We see Widow Anchor going crazy. And my thoughts on this is, ooh, this deck is solid. It's one of the only non-break my board decks. They actually consistently resource their deck. They play back and forth, and you have to be really skilled to win with this deck. So I think its resource generation is absurd. I think it will be due for hits on future FNL lists. It happened to scathe by this one without even a scratch, heading towards the new meta after winning an event. We also have an interesting development. This is a Jump promo that was just released. He wasn't unbanned, was he? I totally missed this in my FNL reaction video, and I didn't even think about Chaos Emperor Dragon being our current Jump promo. So its text is updated in the database, meaning that Europe could have had it. Like just because this is a Jump promo and it's the only way to get the clarifying text, all Chaos Emperor Dragons would have been legal for play upon this being re-released, and it was holding a pretty decent price. People were even being quoted saying, oh, I guess those ultis are useless now. No, you can still run them. You just have to clarify to your opponent how the card dang works now, or have a translation to show them exactly. You can't misquote it, so you have to be very careful. I would just write up a translation. $10, $10, $11, quickly falling over here. I'm sure a lot of shops have ordered infinite copies of these and are going to be trying to fire sale them. So the interesting thing here is, who's going to be playing the waiting game? Who's going to actually be hoarding these for when it does rip off the list, if it does? Our current prize card resembles this card. I would think we'll see this before the WCQ, but at the same time, will they be hitting Thunder Dragons first? Maybe that's the intention. I'm not quite sure. I think this card is a former shell of itself. It's not that good. It's not even notable in my realm, but for prices, it's interesting to keep track of. Also, a quick shout out here. We have the Zodiac playmat in collaboration with Gem coming out. I think it's limited to 90 copies, and I actually have one here. I thought it was going to look pretty cringy, and it turned out, well, if you like showing off waifus, it still could be a little, but it turned out way better than I thought it would. I'll be giving my personal copy away on my live streams, and we'll be live streaming tonight, by the way. But yeah, only 90 of these. That's kind of how Gem keeps their secondary market values, where no other cloth mat company is. Limited runs, limited prints, and only 90 of these, so be sure to tune in the time listed below to get yours on the Gem Playmat site, or MCole40's site as well, I believe, will have the Zodiac collaboration. So that's a thing happening today. Cosmos are going crazy. We got Dark Destroyer actually being the only card to rise sharply. First edition's at 45. We'll have to keep track of what actual sales come out of this madness, because Cosmojo, hey, look, it's still a deal. It's under market price. The other pieces aren't moving. There's 61 copies of Cosmojo. 42 tin cans under market price as well. These have seen volleys of buyouts before. So what it comes down to is there a real stake in this? Is this actually going to go crazy? You even see under market price for the gold Dark Destroyer. People only going after the original. My thoughts are that A, we probably have to see some result for the lower parts of this to actually spike up and people to get really excited. People don't want to pay meta deck prices for a rogue deck. So while it was good to have first edition Dark Destroyers, and I would have thought it was good to have Cosmojo in case something like this happened, we saw no real advancement from Dark Destroyer to 2. I don't think Dark Destroyer to 3 will matter much more, but we have to wait and see what Duelist come up with. Also, no movement on the ABC camp. I am actually shocked that we see dollar busters still for the secret rare busters out of Legendary Collection Kaiba Collection. This is Legendary Collection Kaiba has a $30 paywall on its booster pack. So yeah, we had the ultra rare before, but I would think the secret rare is gonna creep up. Also talking about ABCs, the hangers aren't moving. I would think secret would be considered higher rarity than the OTS Super, but it is cheaper because Battles of Legend, there's gonna be tons of copies of these. Vendors ripped open Battles of Legend Relentless Revenge, are trying to get every penny they can back out of it and plus. So you see relatively cheap Union hangers, and you see really cheap busters right now everywhere. Not movement immediately. I think this is an amazing rogue deck that will still pierce the top cut as it was before when A was at 3. Even without Firewall to loop it, I don't think ABC is necessarily dead. I think that you actually have amazing generation with Photon Sanctuary to work with the deck now in tandem with Hoshinjin. And this is actually towards $7 still, where it was at 10 to 12 when ABC was a thing, and seeing multiple volleys of buyout. So I think that this deck will still pierce top cut Firewall lists. I think this deck will still manage to do its thing. I don't think it needed the FTK to perform or necessarily Firewall to perform, and expect to see this somewhere in a top cut where everybody's quote unquote not expecting it, similar to Burning Abyss, and you have those couple people like me screaming, I knew it! I was screaming it, just like, you know, that plot armor I was screaming about this entire time. Oh man, Galaxy 8 Tomahawk, I think everybody in my ban list prediction comments sections were saying this would get banned, and it's now under $1. So you might want to get yours sooner than later. This common will not restock very fast on the market, and if you're considering any kind of rank 7 engine, including the fact that Danger in just 2 sets already has you know, 7's going for it, you might want your Tomahawk sooner than later for link summoning. So don't let that one slip past you with all of this happening. Basically, this entire Market Watch is discussing things that went up and down from ban list budget options right now. I know Truth Gaming shouting from some rooftop that Pendulums are the best deck ever now. I don't think that's true with how Sky Strikers didn't even receive a hit and you only see 1 to 2 pins piercing top cuts, but Jackal King being the most expensive kind of Pendulum card, it feels like, even more so than our Electromites, you might want to start looking at the budget options. Let's actually look at Electromite. Let's see. Yeah, just $3 for good old Bay out of the core sets. Not bad. So yeah, Jackal is kind of your expensive card here, but again, when you're looking at all these decks, the expensive card quote unquote tends to be under $10. Like Multi-Faker is still under $10. Of course, there's impermanence evenly matched. I'm talking about the core of monsters themselves and the cards outside of those staples that you could switch between decks. You see Trickstars, actually their highest is 7, and I think it's really odd they completely missed the ban list on Trickstars. So I could see Reincarnation floating upwards from the $7 mark towards 10 relatively quickly, as a lot of people might have thought this would get hit too. Even with its newer printing, it's kind of one of the cash cards out of Battles of Legend. And speaking of Battles of Legend, let's actually run on over and see if Gumblar is peeking up, as everyone would think it would get banned. Just the slow crawl up, actually. But 35 copies left on market. I guess if you're attending regionals or YCSs and you're planning to Gumblar your opponent for 4 for funsies for 8 to 9 rounds and get your invite, you might pick this up sooner than later with the low quantity. Also, Rongo Turbo wasn't hit as hard as we would have liked. Yes, Malicious, yes, Armageddon Knight, and Firewall, and the generation that was there. But I've already heard a lot of pros speculating that Rongo Turbo is going to end up still being one of the decks, Firewall or no. Like, you can generate your tokens with Tachyon, not do damage, and make a Rongo turn 1. So it's going to be interesting to see where Rongo Turbo develops. And right now, Bamboozling has been on a continuous fall back from its original buyout. So maybe something to keep in the back of your head is people are still trying to not let you play Yu-Gi-Oh! And to keep an eye on this card as well, as I don't think Rongo Turbo's dead, just with the Dark Warrior engine being hit heavily. Jesus. Thanks for watching so much. P.O. Box open down below. Send in your stuff that you've been wanting to send to your channel. I know a ton of people have been asking for that. And if you want cards signed, starting at the $2 tier on Patreon, you can send return postage, get your card signed, and sent back to you. Please support me on there. And subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos with me in them and talking about card prices in the market. It really makes me so happy. We'll be live streaming tonight at 7 o'clock, and there's just so much going on, guys. Like, it's crazy. Just, like, trying to scramble my brain to think, like, what were people talking about before the ban list? And this might be one of the funniest ones. Like, oh, jump promos are guaranteed money. Well, depending on your volume and the sales that you actually make before something crazy happens. Again, I think this, as we watch this drop down, there will be a point to get